Chapter 10. Adaptation is an art form, and it is the single most important aspect of being human. Excerpt from the Sand Miner's Manual. After the storm had washed past, leaving behind an endless ocean of pristine dunes, a slight movement stirred a pocket of sand. An indentation formed, then sank, and a small hand reached out while sand continued to stream into the buried Ornajet's trapdoor opening. Coughing, young Bari scrambled into the air as his father pushed him up and out of the uncovered hatch. Inside the dim cockpit, Jesse choked on a mouthful of dust. He quickly sealed his face and mask in place. "We were lucky to survive the storm." William English, his tattooed forehead bloody from a gash, stepped back until the sandfall dwindled to nothing. "A very small measure of luck, nobleman." He looked up from the open control panel. "Our emergency locator beacon has been intentionally ruined. No one will be able to find us." Jesse crouched inside the crammed cockpit, his voice muffled by the mask. "The Hoskiners are thorough. They know the value of redundancy." He looked intensely at the Spice foreman, lowering his voice. "But I'm not willing to give up just yet. The three of us are still alive. We'll just have to get out of this by ourselves." Outside the crashed Ornajet, Bari lifted his mask and shouted down to them. "I don't see anything up here. Just a huge sandbox of dunes and dunes and dunes." He breathed dust from his freckled nose. "At least the storm's gone. We'll be up there in a minute. Be careful where you wander. The sand can be dangerous." English dug out a small first aid kit and applied clotting salve and a gauze patch to his forehead. "Bear in mind, nobleman, that surviving on Dune World is a challenge, even with the best equipment and technology. It's not a stroll through one of your rainforests on Catalan." Jesse nodded. "We do have control over one thing, English. We can react to our situation with hope or with despair. I prefer the former." He climbed out of the buried Ornajet to stand on a nearly pristine dune slope, with the exception of Bari's small footprints that trailed up to a high point on a newly sculpted hill, from which he had surveyed the landscape. Jesse felt very proud of his son. Other children, even many adults, might have panicked, but Bari seemed to have complete faith that they would get out of this trap. "I hope you're geared up for a tough time, Bari. I need your strength." "We'll be rescued, Father. General Tuek will know where to find us. He'll send out men." The completely buried Ornajet would be invisible to aerial searchers. Jesse considered spending a day or two digging it out as a marker for rescuers to see, but that would take a lot of valuable energy, and the loose, settling sand and restless winds would probably erase each day's efforts. English tossed a pack up onto the sand and climbed out of the buried ship to stand with the other two. The Spice foreman squinted in the sunlight, then connected his face mask. "I know approximately where we are. At least 100 kilometers from one of the old Imperial survey outposts." "One of the stations Gurney just raided for live rubber shielding?" "Yes, and Dr. Haynes still uses them from time to time. Even if Halleck stripped the nearest station, there's still a solar generator I can use to send a signal. But it's going to be a long journey, even if the weather holds. Jesse pressed his lips together. You think that's our best chance? The only one I can think of, other than waiting here and doing nothing. English shrugged. I believe it's the best option. Then that's the one we'll choose. How soon can we set off? Not until we're prepared. The spice foreman removed two handheld devices from his pack. There's a paracompass in the survival kit, and I pried another from the Ornajet's controls. We'll take each one. We'll each take one. I've locked in the coordinates for the nearest survey outpost. So all we have to do is walk, Bari said. A long ways. English gave the boy a wary smile. It'll be a trek like none of us has ever made before, young master. I'm not afraid. Bari lifted his chin. If that's what we've got to do, then I'm ready. Jesse felt another swell of pride for the boy. Bari's right. We'll do what we have to, even if it's impossible. English insisted on performing a second and third check of the crashed Ornajet to make sure they scavenged every item of any possible use. Jesse left a scrawled note inside the buried cockpit with the coordinates they were trying to reach, just in case a search party found the wreck. They had sufficient food to keep their metabolisms running. Energy rations and packs of concentrated spice, but both Jesse and English knew that their water supplies wouldn't last for the number of days required to reach the outpost, even moving at their best pace in sealed bodysuits. Before emerging from the cockpit for the last time, Bari peeled off several pieces of a reflective metal sheet. Look, signal mirrors as somebody flies over us. They've got to see us, out here in the open desert. Excellent thinking, boy, English said. It was late afternoon when the three began their long walk. Each step was plodding and difficult, and they sank in up to their ankles. Okay. Loose sand held them back, caressing their legs and encouraging them to stay, to stop walking, to sit down and welcome hot, desiccating death. Will we see worms out here? Bari seemed interested, but not fearful. Oh, they're out here, young master. The mining vibrations of our spice harvesters attract them, but we're too small to get their attention, like pebbles tossed across the dunes. Even so, Jesse said, keep your eyes peeled for rippling sand. It was a balancing act to maintain a fast enough pace to cover distance before their supplies ran out, without exhausting themselves to the point of collapse. Although they were weary by the time night fell, they rested only briefly before continuing their long journey in the cool darkness, when they would perspire less. In Carthage, the headquarters mansion was in turmoil. Static discharge from the dust had played havoc with comm systems across the planet. But General Tuek had transmitted a message as soon as the storm cleared. He'd been forced to shout his dire news twice before Dorothy could understand him. The search parties have found no sign of them. She tried to be as strong and stony as one of the blocky statues the Hoskynairs had left behind. Has their whole flight path been checked? Static noises, a garbled response. She repeated herself, and Tuek answered. Every flight-worthy vehicle is combing the desert, but the Coriolis winds wiped out all signs. Anger and accusations edged her voice. How could you let them fly into a storm, General? You are responsible for the nobleman's safety. Even when he does foolish things, like his father and his brother. Despair threatened to overwhelm her, like an inundation of sand burying her for eternity. My son, my son. Tuek looked miserable himself, but frowned at her condemnation. Madam, one doesn't prevent nobleman Lincoln from doing anything once he has a mind to do it. Sweet affection! If I had known, I'd have used a stunner myself and tied him up in one of the spice silos until he came to his senses. How about the observation satellites? Don't we have any with high enough resolution to scan for the Ornajet's locator beacon? Dr. Hain, Dr. Haynes has been working non-stop, but he's managed to get only 4 of the satellites working at all, and they're not worth much. We should already have picked up the beacon, unless it's not functioning. Can you scan for the palmetto? Debris? Not with all the distorted fields. Tuek drew a deep breath, sounding impatient. Apparently, he had already considered every suggestion she'd made. He acted as if she was stepping on his toes. Back on Catalan, he and Dorothy had both been powerful, often at odds but with clearly segregated duties. On Dune World, though, business and defense overlapped heavily. But we'll find him. I'm flying out to scout patrol myself. Do you need extra men? No, there aren't enough vehicles. I've shut down spice operations to devote all crews to the search. Please don't tell me how to do my job. Dorothy bit her lip. Jesse would hate any slowdown in production, and so would the sand miners, who desperately wanted to earn their freedom. If only he had listened to her about the dangers of going to the forward base and taking Bari with him. The static was growing worse. Just send me regular reports. After signing off, she went to find Gurney Halleck. The jongleur would round up his own teams, commandeer any functional flyer, and send men to scour the desert. If stern old Tuek couldn't rescue her family, maybe Gurney could.